And we are live. It's great to be live. David Miles, author, illustrator, graphic designer, art director, the whole works. And you are I guess, the owner and publisher of Bushel and Peck. I almost said Bushel and Beck. That's another publisher.
There you go. We'll do that one a different time. Yeah.
I'm so excited to meet you and to interview you. I heard one of your podcasts, and you just the most forthcoming, honest, helpful, generous. Um, and I'm just so delighted that you're here. Well, actually, you're there. You're in Fresno, California. I'm here
That's right.
near Tel Aviv in Israel. But technology has brought us together. So, David, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I almost forgot to introduce myself. I was so excited to introduce you. I'm Mel Rosenberg, and I am the host of the Children's Literature Network. No, the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. I should write that down. Maybe I will get it right. David, there's so much we want to talk about today. We want to talk about your life, your childhood, how you left being a successful writer to becoming a publisher, and everything in between. So a few words about Bushel and Peck and how it started and why you left your previous employment and went out into the big world as an independent.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you know, I, I fell in love with publishing when I was in high school. So I used to volunteer at our local library, and and of course, as a volunteer, the job that you got was reshelving all the books that had been turned back in, which no one really wanted to do that, but that was my job. And so I remember in the children's section, I'd be shelving all these picture books, and our library carried a series. It was called Landmark Editions, and it was a press in Kansas City back in their heyday was back in the '90s, and they would publish books by kids. And so every year they had a contest, and if you won your age group, then you got a publishing contract for this book. And I thought, I wonder if they're still around. So I googled them, and they were still there. They were still publishing, and they had just restarted their contest that year. And so I decided to enter, and I wrote a book called Mrs. McFig and the Very Big Wig. Um, and you can still find copies on eBay. People are selling them for exorbitant prices. So my mom will rescue them sometimes. She'll buy the book.
I want the copy, so we'll negotiate
Well,
after the
you
show.
don't buy it. Yeah, no, it's it's embarrassing, but that was my first book. I entered in the contest and won the contract, and so I entered the whole publishing world, and I remember having phone calls with my editor, and we would argue over rhythm because rhythm is tricky. Everyone hears it differently, right? And we would talk about rhythm, and they gave me an art director to work on the art with, and so she would coach me on different things with the illustrations, and I just fell in love with the whole process.
And you were like
Uh,
18 years old.
I was 18. Yeah, I was a senior in high school when I did that, and I loved it. I mean, I would stay up till midnight sketching and rewriting, and I nothing had been like that before. It was just something I absolutely loved. And so then when I went to college, I actually majored in business and did a minor in editing. Never quite finished it because I ended up joining a press partway through school, and so didn't finish the minor, but I joined Familius and worked there for a while and learned about publishing. And Christopher was a wonderful mentor there. But then reached the point where I felt like I wanted to kind of go off and do my own thing. So that was when my wife Stephanie and we started our own press, and that's when Bushel Peck was born back in 2018.
Okay, David, but you're a very forthcoming person, and I'm missing something here.
Mhm.
People just don't wake up Wednesday morning, on the 4th of February and say, hey, you know what? I'm fed up with this great job I have. I want to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous publishing myself.
It kind of was. It kind of was. So my wife and I we took our son on a road trip, and we drove up to Washington State for a family reunion. And we were driving along the coast, and when you have car time, there's nothing to do but think. Everyone else is asleep, and you're just driving. And it was one of those moments where things just kind of crystallized, and you just realize this is what we need to do. And there were a few reasons. Some of them were, related to our family, and my wife's health and some of the things like that, where I just felt like I wanted to have flexibility. And but part of it was creative too, where I was excited about the idea of starting something new, and you know, feeling like you get to set the direction of the books that you publish and the things that you're passionate about. So that all came together pretty quickly, actually. In just a matter of a couple of weeks, we felt like we knew that's what we needed to do, and
Mhm.
really excited about that. Yeah.
Uh, did you have to mortgage your house, or did you have the money
No,
ready to?
no, we didn't even have a house. No, I became I'll tell you what, I became a substitute teacher, and so I taught at different schools in the area, and I was even a math tutor, right? Just trying to pay the bills. So I tutored math for kids locally, and did a lot of freelance design work on the side, and that was what kept us going until we were able to start paying ourselves. And we had some side books we did on Amazon and some other projects like that, and that got us going. But yeah, it was definitely a leap of faith, and uh,
Incredible.
yeah,
Shoestrapping
yeah,
a,
absolutely.
a publishing house. And I see now that within a couple of years, you have 100 books out.
Yep.
That's really, really good. Chapeau. You talked about a leap of faith. So I'm going to now go back a few years because I read
Yeah.
about you. You went to Brigham Young and you did some
Mhm.
missionary work.
Yep.
And how does this infuse your career?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I approached my career wanting to make a difference and wanting to do good in the world. And so, you know, there's lots of ways we can do that. I think we all have a way that we serve, whether we're a doctor or we're a teacher, or you know, whatever it is that we do in life, we serve. I remember reading an article about a woman. She was actually one of the cleaners at the business school that I was at, and she was interviewed as part of a career satisfaction, you know, survey. And she loved her job. She absolutely loved it because she said, you know, I love this institution, I love this beautiful building, and I love that at night I get it ready for the students and the professors that come in the next day. And we all have our way that we serve and that we give, and that we feel like we're making things beautiful and wonderful for the people around us. And I bring that up just because I don't want, oh, doctors, yeah, well, obviously doctors do that, right? No, we all do it. We all do it in our
No,
own
but
way.
yeah,
Yeah.
but still, I've taught doctors for many years, and
Yeah.
they're wonderful, caring people. But you know, for doctors, it's more of a profession. You know, you can actually make a living. I don't
Yeah,
know.
true.
I'm not saying anything new here. That some doctors make a good living,
Yeah,
uh,
sure. Yeah.
and most publishers lose money, and most authors lose money, which is why I call this more of a calling,
Mm,
or faith-based rather than commerce. And you studied business at Brigham Young. Brigham Young's, Church of Latter-day Saints,
uh-huh.
and believing to do good in the world through business, and that can sometimes be a sticky wicket, can it not?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think there's lots of ways to approach business. In fact, I wanted nothing to do with business when I went to school. I remember talking with one of the missionaries that I worked with. We were talking about what we would do when we went home, and he said, "Well, I really you know, I'm really excited to go and start a business or become an entrepreneur or work, you know, with some colleagues I have." And I thought, oh, that's not for me. Like I'm not a penny counter. I just want nothing to do with that world. And I was struggling to pick a major, and my brother said, well, why don't you try business? You know, and so I did, and I loved it. I loved it because it's analytical, it's creative, it's people. And what I learned is, you know, business is about management. What you manage and how you manage is up to you. But business in and of itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. You can do it in a really good way, or you can do it in a really bad way. And so when we started our press, I remember talking to Stephanie and saying, you know, we can make this any kind of company we want it to be. And at first, we were just going to do a normal children's press, and something just felt like it was missing. I felt like I wanted to do something more than just make beautiful books. And so that's when we added in our book for book promise. That's we decided that for every book that we sell, we'll then donate a book to kids in need. And so that's still a work in progress, and we're
I,
still,
I,
yeah.
I congratulate you for that, and I don't know why everybody doesn't do it, but let me ask you this: how do you find out who's in need?
Well, there's a lot of different organizations, and so there's a couple ways you can do it. One is working with smaller grassroots groups. So we've
Hmm.
done some small scale giving up to this point,
Hmm.
and we've got a nomination form on our website that anyone listening is welcome to come and they can nominate their organization. We have schools that just don't have much funding. They'll come and ask for free books. We've had libraries that just they're in really small rural communities. There's not a big budget for books, and so they'll ask for new titles. We've had women's shelters.
But with David, but that's competing with yourself.
Well, it is and it isn't. If it's a group that just doesn't have funding to buy books anyway, they're probably not going to come to us and buy titles. We'd like to get titles out
I
there and get them into the
I
hands of kids.
I think it's lovely.
Yeah,
So I'm going to jump ahead now. So
please,
like,
yeah.
what would for picture book,
Mhm.
what would be a regular a first press run for you guys?
Most picture books will start at only 3,000 copies. We're still really
Oh,
small. Sometimes we'll do 5,000, but that's about the range that we do.
it's fine. No need to apologize. The question is whether these 3,000 include books that you want to give away, or that's only on a later printing. How does that work for you?
Yeah, so the books that we give away, those are paperbacks.
Yeah.
And so the way we do it is, currently we do small scale giving, and those are hardcovers and kind of different places that we feel like we want to do. We're looking at probably end of next year, maybe the year after. That's when we're going to start really our larger scale giving. So we're adding up all the books that we've sold, and then that number then goes towards a paperback print run. Those are a lot cheaper, a lot more economical. They're cheaper to ship too, right? It makes it easier for everyone to kind of distribute those. And so that's what we'll do probably I'm hoping in a couple of years, we can start doing the larger scale stuff. And so that'll be things with really big organizations. We'll probably work with First Book and school districts and things like that. I know Fresno here was interested in doing books for all of their students, and they're a massive district. So that would be tens of thousands of copies that we would do right off the bat with them. And so those are those things that we're looking at down the road. But right now, it's a lot of these more small grassroots groups that reach out, and we're happy to help as best we can.
That's fantastic. Um, so my next question is,
Mhm.
you wrote Beyond the Macduff and McWig, which perhaps you're not proud of, but I still want to see that book. You have a book that I did see, which is called A Unicorn and Horse,
Mhm.
which was a very lauded and celebrated picture book that you wrote while you were at Familius or afterwards.
While I was there, yeah.
And you're not writing anymore, and you have that you have that knack. Few people have it.
Well, that's nice of you to say. I don't know that I'm that good, to be honest. I find that the people that submit to us are so much better, and I'm more than happy to work on their projects. I do a lot of editorial work with our press, and so we have an editorial director. His name's Ryan, Ryan Van Cleve, and in fact, he'd be a great one for you to interview.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
I was just thinking about that today. Yeah, for sure.
yeah, he's head of the creative writing department at Ringling College, so fantastic location and creative school. So he and I work together on all of the books that we publish, and what I find is that I love the editorial process just as much as I love the writing process. In fact, probably even more, because I love the diagnosing and trying to understand why a book is or isn't working, and then trying to help an author figure out how to fix that. I love that part. So sometimes I write. I still have little projects I write here and there, but I'm happy to take the editor role and help in that way too.
So I've written. Let's say that I've written something and you like it, but there's something missing. Do you tell me, hey Mel, there's a beat missing between
Mhm.
this and that, and why don't you do this? Or you just say, Mel, there's a beat missing. Go bust your head and fix it.
Oh no, yeah, we'll try to make recommendations to help you out. What I find is, when you've stared at a manuscript for hours and hours and hours and hours as the author, sometimes you just don't see things, or your mind is able to make leaps over gaps that a first time reader probably isn't going to be able to do. And so that's where we try to be as helpful to an author as we can. And if an author still doesn't quite see what we're seeing, sometimes we'll even write a passage and say, we're not writing your book for you, but we're just going to write this so you can see what we're trying to paint the picture of, and then they can go back and kind of figure out how they want to do it themselves. But that's the hardest part sometimes, is communicating what you're feeling or what you're seeing in a way that someone else can get it, and then they can go and make the rewrites that you feel like maybe need to be made. So yeah, that's the process usually.
Okay. Let's now run through the whole gamut of submitting. You know, this program is basically mainly on picture books because that's what I love, and I'm the host.
Yep.
So somebody submits a manuscript. How many manuscripts do you get a month? What's your selection process? Now you're not taking from the general public. Expound, please.
Yeah, sure. So we used to take unsolicited, and then it just got to be too many. We just couldn't.
How many is too many, David?
I don't remember. Ryan was taking care of the incoming manuscripts, but I know it got to be too much for him, so that means it's a lot. But I said, okay, well, let's turn it off, and we can just do agented submissions. So that's what we decided to do. Just and we were trying to respond to everyone too. We don't like just not responding to people. So part of what we do as a press is we always try to send a note and always try to tell you, hey, thanks for submitting, but here's why we decided to go ahead and go a different direction. So that's part of it too, and that's one of the reasons we had to sort of narrow the fire hose a little bit. And so yeah, now it is just solicited and agented submissions, except for illustrators. If you're an illustrator, we'll take unsolicited just fine. So what we do now is, Ryan and I will kind of take a first look at some of the books that come in.
Hold on, David, you got ahead of me. It says, because I studied your website. It says that you reopened from January 1st, which is terrific.
Yep.
And you can submit if you're unagented, if one of your editors has told you that you could or whatever.
Yes, that's true. So we have, sometimes we'll do like writers workshops, or we'll do special interviews with maybe a children's writing group or something like that. And in those cases, we'll kind of do a pass, beyond the slush pile or a golden ticket, or someone you can submit without having an agent. So there are quite a few opportunities for people to do that if they're in some kind of program that we're involved with. So that's correct. Yeah, we have quite a few that come in that way as well.
So I'm going to extemporaneously suggest a late Christmas present,
Go for it.
or Hanukkah for the people who are listening now. How about telling me like one subject that you'd like to see a manuscript, and we'll open for 24 hours, and people can write in and submit and say, David asked us for a manuscript on.
Sure.
Just for the next 24 hours.
Sure.
Pick a subject.
Yeah, that works great. Too. I'll give you a bunch of subjects. How about that? And then if they have something you've worked on, great.
No, David, that's OIV. Okay, so everybody out there, get your pads and pencils. This show, what's that? We're broadcasting now. How long are we going to give people?
I think a week would be great. Let's give people
a week would be great, and I'll make sure the podcast goes live quickly. So you have a week. Today is January the 9th.
Yes.
So till midnight, Fresno time on the 16th, you can submit to David. Just say, David, I saw David on Mel's interview. And what are the subjects?
All right, here's some subjects that we love. So anything related to history, literature, art, science, those are all areas that we publish frequently. I'll give you some examples of titles. We've done a book about exoplanets. We did a book about the La Brea tar pits. We've done a book about heroes of World War II. Those are the kinds of things that we like to do. We also have an imprint for poetry. And so if you do kids poetry, that's an area that we'd be willing to take a look.
If you do it well.
If you do it well, yes. If you do it well. And so that's an area that we publish. We're starting a board book line soon. So if you have some board book manuscripts, that will be a great place to look at. But again, we love things that are intelligent, thoughtful, thought-provoking for kids. We think kids are smart. And so we want, yeah, they are. Where'd you get
that idea?
And so we want books that treat kids as if they're smart, because they are. And so So it's okay to push the vocabulary. It's okay to push the subject matter for kids. They're really interested in the world around them, and so we want to give them things that they want to read about.
Even board books, even board books.
Even board books, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. We have a series of board books about weather and about space, and they talk about air pressure and they talk about some of these things. So yeah, those are all great things for kids. And would love to do some more holiday books. So we haven't done a ton of them, but that's an area we'd love to grow into. So if you have some holiday manuscripts that Halloween, Christmas, Hanukkah, all really good. Just make sure they're really good and they're really fresh and they're really original, right? That's really important. But we'd love to have one of the big books of the holiday come out. That'd be great. Biography is really good.
One second, I'm reminding you to brag about Sunbeam.
Yes. Well, yeah, let's talk about that in a minute. We'll finish the list and then we can talk about Sunbeam.
There's more on the list. Oy vey.
Of course, there's always more on the list. We love making books. Biography is a great area too. So I'd recommend that if you're going to do biography, we love doing compilations. So maybe it's a book of 20 or 25 stories about people in a particular theme. That's a really good way to publish biography these days. I find that it just has higher value for people. You know, you could get an
you're talking about middle grade now.
Well, this would still be a picture book. Yeah, I
really?
mean, it's not a picture book per se, but it's still still for age 8, 8 to 9, and so that's an area that's working really well for us. So love to see more of that. Yeah, that's probably the list. Does that work for you?
It works for me.
Good.
I'm going to need permission from my agents to submit to you, but like there's so many wonderful writers who haven't had the luck of finding an agent.
Yeah.
So this is really a wonderful opportunity. So I'm going to reiterate until January 16th.
Yep.
Because of this magnificent person, David Miles, authors who write really well but are not agented can submit directly for this window on one of the subjects that David has mentioned. And I think that's wonderful. And if one of those manuscripts is selected, I want to interview that author.
Yeah, we'll let you know, Mel. Let me tell you something too. This is something that I tell writers when I'm at a writers conference. A lot of people start, they want to publish that perfect, cute, brilliant picture book, and there's nothing wrong with that because picture books, have a huge market. But I often tell people if you're trying to break in, try nonfiction. Try a nonfiction picture book. Ages 6 to 9, 6 to 10, somewhere in there. I find that that's a really, really good place for writers to break into the market. It's less glamorous, right? It's not as exciting as coming up with your own picture book story, but it's a great way to get published because for a publisher, often a nonfiction book, I'm going to sell it based on the topic, not based on the name of the author. And so it's a lot easier for me to sell a book about exoplanets, for example, who was a debut author. She'd never written, a picture book before. And did this book about exoplanets, did a wonderful job, and she's selling it to planetariums. And we were at ALA, and all these scientists from NASA came over, and they all wanted a signed copy. It's sometimes the subject matter can carry the day for your book. And so if you're having a hard time breaking in, that's one piece of advice I'd give is try nonfiction, because often it's a way that your name or your pedigree doesn't really matter so much. And then you get that first book under your belt, and then it's a little bit easier to keep going and keep publishing other books.
Okay, but I'm going to add that even so, you're still going to have to do it with passion for the
absolutely.
Absolutely. For the story to shine.
Yes, something that you're really curious about, something that you love, that all shines.
So David, you said nonfiction, but we had a little preamble where we talked about almost nonfiction.
Yes.
For some reason, there's this dichotomy in the literary world that there's nonfiction and fiction. And oy vey, everybody, if there's a conversation about what exactly happened. And I'm saying, as a scientist, that nothing is real nonfiction. I mean, it's what we think it is today. 20 years is going to be different. A couple of words on that. Does that be true nonfiction? Can it be a story?
I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, because some of the books that we do are straight nonfiction. They would go in the nonfiction section of a bookstore. But some of the books we do, they're story-based, right? They might be for a younger audience, that 5-year-old who's interested in space, or they're interested in plants or the rainforest or whatever it is. but it might be a little too dry to just go straight nonfiction. In that case, sometimes having a really beautiful story is a great way to go. We just got a great manuscript. I don't want to say too much because I haven't asked the author if I can, but it's this wonderful book about atoms. But she's done it in this really playful, fun way. It would definitely go in the fiction section because there's so much fiction in it. But it's all based on science, and it's based on scientific principles, right? It's a great way to teach. And so, yeah, we love that blend too. So don't be shy if that's kind of more your way of writing. Just have really solid back matter. That's the key, right? You want really good back matter where you talk about. That's when you can get really nonfiction-y in the back, and that'll help sort of carry that nonfiction side of the book.
Mhm. So somebody's written, and the back matter, it can always be developed.
Yes.
You have to have this story. You have to have the story that's going to catch you, right? You can always come back to the author and say, "Wow, can you really develop this back matter? Wow, wow, wow."
Yeah, for sure. If the story's great, I mean, we can always add the back matter. If you really want to make your book stand out as a submission, add the back matter. Every publisher is asking for back matter. And so that's another tip I would give is if you
Wow,
want,
add a lot of back matter or add some teasing back matter.
you know what? They can always take away, right? But I would say do more than you need.
Wow, wow,
So
wow.
some examples of back matter that I've seen that work really well. Maybe a glossary, maybe a timeline of how things happened, a biography of someone, maybe maybe an unknown story that kind of goes along with it. So, for example, we have a book called Agent 355, and it's a sort of a you decide, choose your adventure kind of book about who this famous spy was during the Revolutionary War in America. And some of the back matter in the back isn't just about Agent 355, but it's about women during the Revolutionary War and what their role was, generally speaking. It's about other women that maybe were spies. It's about who, you can go beyond just the subject matter and add in other topics or other things that might be of interest to people. And that can be a really good way to go about it.
That's great advice, David, because most authors have reticence to having too much back matter. They're afraid that it might be counted, it might make the manuscript look very heavy for the reader. And you're saying the opposite, and I applaud you. So that's another way to go.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you can always take away, but here's what I tell people: a publisher can always trim you down, but a publisher can't see what they haven't been given, right? And so some authors are worried, like, do I put in art notes? Do I put in this stuff? And my advice is always show, right? Add more maybe than you need, because we can always take it out, or we can always imagine it not there, but it's hard to imagine something there that you haven't put in. And so, if we need to trim your back matter, that's okay. But at least you're showing that you have the ability to develop this amazing back matter, and that gives us confidence in you as a writer.
That's really great advice. And I'll go back to art notes, because we are taught, to refrain from art notes as best we can.
Yeah, well, I know, and I like art notes because some picture books, the art and the text really have to go together, and sometimes the text has to be really sparse, and the pictures have to help carry what you're envisioning with the text. I know a lot of publishers don't want authors dictating the art, and I get that, and I would feel the same way overall. But sometimes the text and the art, it just can't be a duplication of each other. They have to kind of dance together. And so if you can see a way that you're envisioning your text sort of dancing with the art, maybe you're leaving something out of what you wrote because you're thinking that it's going to be shown in the art. Like, I need to know that. I want you to communicate that to me so I can see what you were envisioning for the book. What I don't want, and this is what can often happen, what I don't want is a manuscript to come in and the words are very word heavy, and then we give it to an illustrator and they illustrate all the same stuff, right? And it ends up just being this duplication. I want layers. I want the art to add things that isn't in the text, and vice versa. And so for that, we have to be able to communicate what we're picturing. And I think art notes are helpful for that. So other editors may feel differently, but I find that it's helpful. Yeah.
This is great. So you receive the submissions.
Uh-huh.
And then what happens?
So first step is Ryan and I look at it together. So we look at everything first. If we see some things that we think have potential, then we'll kick it up to the team. And then our whole staff will look at it together. We'll have our marketing person, our managing editor, other folks that are part of that group. We'll look at it, we'll critique them. We'll talk about sales opportunities for the book. And does it fill a hole in our list? So all these different pieces that are part of the conversation. I can give you a bunch of them if it helps people. So what I find with books is every book has multiple opportunities. And when a book comes in, I'm looking for a book that I think can fill as many of those opportunities as possible. So for example, I'll have a book come in, and it may be great for a particular holiday in America. Great, that's awesome. But I want to make sure that I can sell at other places as well. So I'm going to ask myself, okay, is this a book that I could also sell foreign language rights for? Are they going to buy this book in Europe and translate it into German and into Italian and into French? Is this a book that I could sell really well in the gift market, which is different, right, than bookstores and the trade? So I'm looking for a book like that. I'm going to ask myself, is this a book that I think would sell really well on our website? Because we do a really, really heavy trade with direct-to-consumer advertising. And so I'm going to be thinking about it that way. I'm going to ask, is this a book that has series potential? Is this something that if I invest into making this book work first, could we then build a kind of a series out of this book? So those are all different things that I'm going to ask myself. And the answer doesn't have to be yes for every single one of them. But the more places I can say yes to it, then the bigger appeal that book is going to have for me as a publisher, because I know I can try to sell at different places. It's not going to be dependent on just one channel working. And that increases the chances that we can succeed with that book. So that's something to think about too.
Okay. Do you think this is a bit of a difficult one here?
Yeah.
Do you think that because of your background, your religious background, the way you look at publishing, you're going to try and publish quality books, look for higher quality at the expense of not ticking all the boxes?
That's an interesting question. I find that you can do both. And I find that if you do both, quality carries the day. It really does. I have been so surprised at the number of people that have reached out to us and said, "Hey, I saw this book. It was so beautiful. How come I don't know about you guys? And we want to have a sales partnership." I find that quality always wins. And so if you're making beautiful books and the quality is there, then I find the sales avenues and the other channels start to open up. This year we're launching partnerships with several new book fair companies, and when we send them boxes of samples, they just said, "Oh my gosh, like these are beautiful," because we work really hard to make beautiful embossed foil, all the stuff, right? We want these books to be beautiful, and so I find that if you can delight people and exceed their expectations, they're really excited about your book. So quality is not just the packaging, right? Quality is the writing, quality is the back matter.
The illustrations
that love that, yeah, the illustrations, all of that matters in a book. And so yeah, it could be a really non-fiction-y book, but the quality is still going to be there. It might be a picture book, but the quality still has to be there in all fronts. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to forget, so I'm going to go back to Sunbeam.
Oh, Sunbeam, sure, yeah. Okay, let's talk about Sunbeam. So Sunbeam is our faith-based imprint. It's really small. It's kind of a passion project of us here at the press. But I felt like there was a need for faith-based books that could talk to each other. Books that helped faiths understand each other and appreciate each other. And so the goal of this imprint is to build bridges. It does that by building bridges between faiths. It also does it by building bridges between faith and other areas that people tend to think of as non-faith. Science, for example. And so one of the books we published is called Scientists of Faith. And
I saw that.
Yeah.
That's a kind of an oxymoron.
No, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So it's got 25 scientists.
No, David, I love oxymorons.
Well, yeah, we're in publishing, right? We should. And so it's got 25 scientists. Some are Christian, some are Jewish, some are Sikh. And it's this wonderful book that talks about people who don't see a false choice between science and between faith, but they see them as being very complementary. And so you have paleontologists and you have astrophysicists and all these people who see God in the science, right? That's a beautiful example of building a bridge between faith and another industry.
I think it's lovely. I'm going to continue now
Yep.
because I want you to to show everybody a couple of your recent books that you're in love with,
Sure.
if you
Yep.
have any around, I hope.
I do. I do. I've got some sitting
Okay.
here. So
No, but
this,
before that, there's the $64,000 question.
yeah.
Actually, it's a $20,000 question.
I was hoping you were going to go
Um,
up. So,
Now you're not going to want me to go up when you hear the question, David.
oh, okay, sure.
Okay, so you have this really great manuscript. Somebody submitted something, and Ryan and you and the whole team, and I understood that your son is also one of the editors, uh, and
Here's his opinion.
that
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. I mean, best to hear from kids. But
Yep.
as somebody who writes manuscripts, I'm the first to admit that a manuscript is nothing without the illustrations. It's like a coat hanger,
Yeah.
for a framework.
Yep.
And you see this beautiful framework, but so much of it depends on the illustrations, and you're jumping into and good illustrators cost at least $20,000 for a picture book. That's why you don't want to say more and more and more. and and how do you take this plunge? This is something I can't understand. Where did the guts for this come from?
Yeah. Well, so one of the things we do is we start small with our illustrators. So we don't pay $20,000 for our illustrators. We start really small.
I know. I just wanted to see how you reacted.
Yeah, no, we work with people who are maybe starting out and are looking to get their first book published. We work with illustrators who are maybe overseas, right, where the dollar goes further, and so the advances that we can pay feel like a $20,000 advance in some of these places. So that's one of the ways that we try to get talented people, but we can pay them still what they feel is a good pay. Um, we do anticipate that down the road we'll start being able to pay some of these larger advances, and we can attract some of these bigger names in the illustration world. But yeah, right now we start smaller, and then we kind of graduate up as we grow.
But
That's kind of
there is a leap of faith here
sure.
that you're going to get something extraordinary, exciting, fabulous, and you don't know. It's like incubating an egg and you don't know what's inside of it. There's many books with that trope, but you know what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. You know what? It's always a little scary when you hire an illustrator because you look at the portfolio and you think, well, I know what they're capable of, but I don't know what I'm going to get when I actually get the art in. And one of the things we do is if it's an illustrator we worked with before and things went really really well, we work with them again and again and again and again. So we have a lot of illustrators we've done 4 or 5 books with because we trust the quality, we trust the process, we know that we work really well together, we know they understand what we're looking for, and so that's one thing that we do that works really well for us. We do take risks on new artists. I would say this: if you're an illustrator listening, the bigger your portfolio, the better, right? The more confidence you can give me, the better. And some illustrators have multiple styles. That's great, but make sure you have a decent size of each style, because again, if I'm coming to you, I want to feel confident that I'm going to get what I think I'm going to get when I hire you. So the worst feeling in the world, and I've only had to do it once, but the worst feeling in the world as a publisher is when you're working on a book, you've gone down this path with the artist, and it's just not working, and your gut tells you this is not the wrong artist for the book. I have had to do it where we've had to change illustrators because it just wasn't coming along, and that never feels good. We hate doing that, but we try to avoid that if we can. And so the more you can give us up front, the better that we're all going to feel about it.
Great advice.
Yeah.
So, David, now's a good time to brag and wave around some of your recent books.
Well, I picked a sampling, and I'll do this just so people who are listening, we talked about some of the areas we're interested in publishing. I'm going to show you some of these just to give you a sense of the kinds of books that we publish, and this will help you with your submissions over the next 7 days. So this is our poetry imprint. So this is the illustrated Emily Dickinson. And I love these books. Ryan actually is the editor on these, but you can just see that there's beautiful collage illustrations, which I think complement the feel of some of this older, poetry. So That's a really
So
beautiful
this is a
series.
book. One second. This is a book of poetry of Emily Dickinson,
Yep.
illustrated by.
Well, I did the illustrations in that one actually. So that's collage art that I did. Yeah.
Why are you so modest?
Well, it's good. It's all good. I it doesn't matter to me. I just want a beautiful book. It doesn't matter who does it. I just want the book to be the right book. And in that case, I was free. So that's why I did the illustrations for the book. So
And
here's
it's
here's a
easy.
good example.
It's easier to fire yourself if the collages
It's
don't
true. It's true. Yeah,
live up
it's
to
true.
your expectation.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And here's a nonfiction picture book. So this is called Stuck,
Yes.
and this is the story of the Liberator Tar Pits, right? This is an
Yes.
example of taking a nonfiction topic and making it really beautiful and really fun for kids. So it's written and it's written in verse actually. So it's a very poetic kind of telling. It's not done in prose. You can kind of see from the text here. It's very 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 well done. Joyce Uglow is the author on this. She's phenomenal. And in fact, you should have her on. She's great. But
I think that I've already scheduled her.
you might have. Good. Okay. Good. Yeah, she's amazing. We did a book signing with her, and she showed up with a whole like Smilodon like hat on, and it was amazing. So yeah, it was super fun.
And the illustrations?
Illustrations are by Valeria Milovanova. Yep, she's awesome. This is actually very different style than other illustrators that I've worked with, and so we'd love to do more with her because I love how much movement there is in her art. You can just look at this here, right? There's such a sense of
Yeah.
play and movement, which
And
you don't always get.
it's
That's really
it's
cool.
incredible. And this is a wide book, which is less common.
Mm-hmm.
So who dictates this? The art director, the artist, the
Yeah,
illustrator,
usually
you?
the art director will do that, and in this case, it just kind of made sense with what we wanted to be on the cover. If we did this vertically, it
Yeah.
just wouldn't look as good, right?
No,
It
no,
something feels right. Yeah.
I'm not arguing. I like it.
Well, books that deal with nature or that are landscapes, or you're looking at the natural world, they often lend themselves really beautifully to these landscape books. We're doing a book on rivers, so that's going to be a really long, landscape kind of book. Here's that exoplanet book that I talked about, right? There's that one. And again, debut author, but just did a beautiful job taking something so complex and explaining it to kids, right? So, I mean, some of the concepts in here are pretty advanced. You talk about the habitable zone, and you talk about spectroscopy, and you talk about probability and mathematics and all these different things. And so, you can see how she's broken it down and helped kids understand this. So, that's a really good example of how you can break in on a nonfiction book. This is probably one of the last books that I wrote. This is called the Side by Side Declaration of Independence. Again, the goal of a book is to make something accessible, and so this takes the Declaration of Independence, takes the original text, which is hard to understand because it's more old-fashioned language, and then we translate it into sort of plain English for kids. And so that's a really good way to go about doing a nonfiction book. So don't get so locked into a format. Think about, how do I take this topic and how do I help kids understand it, and then let the format sort of blossom from there. That's how I like to think about books. You think about the end reader and how you can format something so that it gets the goal achieved for the reader. So here's another example. Here's a completely different format. This is still American history, but this one's interactive. And so this one is all flaps and wheels, and this takes the Constitution and it explains it for kids, right? So this is about the compromises, between the small states and the large states, and so this talks about some of those kinds of things that happened.
Wow, that's brilliant.
This is a color decoder here. So here's the preamble, and then you can use this color decoder, move it up and down, and you can see translations for what some of those hard words might have meant. So again, right? You're not thinking so much, I'm going to do a book about the Constitution, but you're thinking, how do I help kids understand the Constitution, and what's a format that would be engaging and would help them be interested in learning about it? So you've seen, 3 or 4 different formats already. They're all different, but they all help deliver that message in just the right way. And so that's how I like to think about books. They're an avenue to teaching, and you shift it up depending on how you want to teach.
Fantastic. So, David, this has been incredible. Is there anything that I haven't asked? Any more advice? I'm just going to suggest to people who want to submit,
Yeah.
maybe not to submit exactly to the same subject. In other words, if you say, "Oh, David is interested in exoplanets," I'm going to submit a manuscript in exoplanets. That may not work for you because you
Yeah,
just
if
have a
we've
book
already
out.
done it, you probably don't want to submit that. Yes. So okay, so here we haven't talked about this here. So let me give you some more topics. Ready?
All
So
right.
these are topics that we call evergreen topics, and these are things that they get published every year, but because there's such an appetite for them, they sell every year. So I'm always looking for books about space. I'm always looking for books about dinosaurs, cars and trucks, construction, right? Things that move,
Mhm.
animals, human body, ocean, jungle, forest and woodlands. That's a really big area that works really well. Birds, love a book about birds. Um, Volcanoes, geology. These are all, that's probably enough there. I love you, mom, dad, mom, kid, dad, kid, Mother's Day, Father's Day. Those are all areas that we can publish year after year after year. So if you got some manuscripts in that space, those are things we love to take a look at.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So this has been all that I hoped for and much more. I'm
Good,
incredibly
good.
grateful to you. David Miles, the publisher. I know the last question. The name of your publishing house, Bushel and Peck.
Do you know the song?
Of course, I know the song, Guys and
Good.
Dolls,
Okay, good.
Frank Lesser.
Yeah,
Are,
yeah,
are you,
it's after the song. Yeah.
so are you going to sing it for us?
I'm not going to sing it, but I will tell you, people
No,
that are,
no, no, if I asked you very nice.
if you ask me
I,
very nice,
I,
sure, I'll sing it
yeah,
for you.
okay.
But you have to sing it with me.
I can't sing it with you because of the time delay, but you can sing a line and I'll sing a line.
Okay, here we go. I love you,
A bushel and a peck,
a bushel and a peck,
and a hug around the neck,
a hug around the neck. That's as far as I
and
know.
and a barrel and a heap,
Oh, a barrel and a heap.
and I'm talking in my sleep.
There we go. Beautiful. About
How
you.
about you?
About you, Mel. About you.
David, this is
That's where it comes from.
incredible. We're going to send all of the viewers and listeners home to do their homework and
Okay.
submit to you within this 7-day window. And you and I are going to go out and come back and have a little sum up. And again, thank you for your tremendous generosity of spirit. You are what the Jews call a mensch.
Well, thank you. That's very kind.
Take care,
Thanks, Mel.
everybody. David, you go and come back.
Okay, sounds
Everybody else has homework to do.
That's
Thank
right.
you very much to
Look
David.
forward to your submissions. Thanks,
Yeah,
Mel.
and 1 second, and I've been with David Miles, the publisher of Bushel and Peck, and now a singer. And I'm Mel Rosenberg, the host of the Children's Literature Channel of the New Books Network. And it's been wonderful. David, thanks a million.
You bet. Thanks so much.
See you in 10 seconds.
Okay.